It's like 24 hours since John McCain was put to death. It's like 24 hours since John McCain was put to death. It's like 24 hours since John McCain was put to death.
We are vexed by what's been happening in the last couple of days. Some are vexed by what's in the book and what's in the op-ed. Others are vexed by the president's response thereto. What is your read?
It's just chaos all the time. I mean, and it seems like he's the commander of the chaos, whether it's not just this. I look at other things. I look at what happened at the G7 when he wouldn't sign the statement, or, the ruckus that happened at NATO, or there's so much going on all the time. And it's like there's a tornado every day. Now, that's fine if that's the way he wants to run it. But what I can tell you is when you have all that chaos, how do you solve the biggest problems? When everybody's trying to put out fires and there's this happening and that happening, I have the 7th largest state in the country. I couldn't deal with all this chaos and be able to achieve anything. So that's what I'm really concerned about, is that things aren't getting done.
But his people counter by saying economy, regulations, strength abroad, America's great again.
Let's take them all. First of all, the economy is doing well. I give them credit for the fact that they have deregulated. I don't want them to go too far, though. Being able to deregulate, cut down some of the government regulations is useful. Secondly, though, we passed the tax.
Too far, by the way.
Some have, and I share some of their view. We got the tax bill, but we didn't pay for it. We rang up the debt, so my 2 daughters who are in college now are going to have to pay for it. There should have been tax reform like Reagan did. We didn't get it here. We just got the tax cut. Is it helping? Yeah, it's positive, but over time, the mounting debt is really a problem. Okay, let's talk about what's happened overseas. Okay, we're in these trade wars with everybody, this tariff fight, which I don't know anybody in either party thinks it's a good idea. Because at the end, you know what the president had when he came into office? He had a package in front of him where if they'd have crossed the T's and dotted the I's, we would have had a free trade agreement with the Europeans. Now we've gone through this tariff on steel and aluminum, and we're back and forth. That's chaos.
They say Kudlow has a deal with Europe that's better than ever. His deal with Mexico is going to be better than ever, and Canada is going to come along. Do you believe any of that?
Well, I would like to see that happen, but we didn't need to go through all this to get a good trade deal with Europe. We didn't need to go through it. And then what about all of the noise that we hear about do we want to support our allies and all these things, or do we not? It just creates doubt, and it creates confusion, and it creates... Now, we need to be tough at times, but you can't get everything done by putting people in a corner, telling the Canadians, well, if you don't do this, you're out, I mean, I'm also concerned a little bit, Chris, about the pressure that we're putting on everybody, okay? The Iran, which we walked away from it, which I don't think we should have, and it left us, and I don't like the Iranians, but there are ways to deal with it. We withdrew from this thing. It's aggravated our allies, in that case. You look at, and we push them into a corner. Now we're involved in Syria, in Turkey, pushing them into a corner. They've got an economic mess that the leader over there created, that we are, in some ways, we're making it even more difficult there. At the end, you just can't be having these problems with everybody. If you put people in a corner, if you back a person into a corner or an animal in a corner, you know what happens? Ultimately, they strike or they resent it. That doesn't mean that we should not be tough, but we have to be more selective, and we have to recognize we need our allies. Let me give you one more, the Chinese. We need our allies to be working with us to tell the Chinese to knock off the ripoffs, to tell the Chinese that we expect better behavior out of them. Who do we go have a meeting with? I mean, I talk to these people around the world they're just really uncertain about where we are.
And he says that's a strength for him. And his people say this is all style. I've fought that notion because I don't believe it's stylistic, and I think the last 2 days have proven that. This is not a management style. If this is true, by any measure, what's in the Woodward book, what we read in that op-ed today, there's a problem going on in that White House that you see as a contagion in terms of every situation you've just seen, the chaos to get to a point that you could have gotten to otherwise, always using hostility, using aggression, where at some point you're going to have to act or be acted upon. Those are real problems. No one in your party stands up about it.
Look, I learned early on in my job when I had a fight with the unions that, and sometimes you have to fight and stand tough, but if you do it all the time, it's distracting. You can't achieve your bigger purposes, and it's not about it's not about I win, you lose. The other thing is, when you look at the Congress, though, it's like 24 hours since John McCain was put to death. And look at this circus of a hearing that's going on. Here's what I think at the end. The federal government right now is not functioning. And every time I talk to your folks, I say, we have to begin to solve many of these problems where we live. If we have problems with poverty, with drug abuse, with bullying, with infant mortality, the federal government is not functioning now. So where we live, regardless of what our party is, whether we're liberal, conservative, these are issues that need to be solved. Gang problems in Chicago. That's not an ideological issue or a partisan issue. How do you want to solve that? Bring the community together. I don't care who you are. I don't care who you vote for. Nobody wants this gang problem to continue. We can work together as a community to solve these things. And I've been part of some of it, and we need to do that around the country. So instead of people sitting around worrying all the time about what's happening in Washington, we got to get off the couch and figure out what we can do where we live, Chris. That is the antidote to all the partisanship and the breakdown in Washington. At some point, they'll get their act together, and then we can have them do some things. But right now, I don't know what they can accomplish.
I take the message. I do believe that most things that we've seen start at a local level. But at some point, we need to get better out of our leaders and our institutions down there, and that's what hopefully the midterms will be working toward. Whether it's left, right, or reasonable, whoever gets elected, hopefully they go in there with more of a sense of purpose. But I got to leave it there, Gov.
More a sense of the country and not partisanship or who gets the political gain. It's like 24 hours since John McCain was put to death. It's like 24 hours since John McCain was put to death. It's like 24 hours since John McCain was put to death.